Wow, what a season it was. I know we've only had a day to decompress, but let's take a look back at the postseason that was. Plus, Jay Woodcroft, what will he do if he does stay? Well, let's be real, he is staying. And guys, we still have postseason hockey in Edmonton, so we'll talk about that and so much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the playoffs that were, as we mentioned, as you know what, taking a step back and taking a look at the playoffs that we were able to be a part of has been so beautiful. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Plus, today, Kenny Holland and Jay Woodcroft having their exit interviews and last interviews with the media today. So we'll go over just what Jay Woodcroft did for this team. And will we extend them? It's sounding pretty positive. So we'll get to that later on in today's episode. Plus, like I mentioned, postseason hockey isn't over in Edmonton. We're going to talk about the Edmonton Oil Kings as they had a massive win last night in Seattle in the WHL Final. We'll go all the way through that, and we can go and watch it. Go watch playoff hockey and an Edmonton team's in the finals. Plus, another Edmonton prospect is also in finals for his team as well. So we'll get through with that as well. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Plus, we're on YouTube. So if sometimes you're not on the road and you're going, I'm wondering how the Oilers are, and you're doing some cleaning around the house, you can pop on the YouTube and listen to us there. But I also want to say really quickly a massive thank you and a quick shout out to the Avalanche fans that have been coming through on our videos and commenting and really engaging with the content. You guys have been fantastic. So Oilers fans, I give you a task throughout the Stanley Cup Finals. Just go and say hi to the Locked On Avalanche people over there. Chris and Kyle are so fantastic. I can't pump them enough. Again, fantastic group over there and fantastic fans, especially here on YouTube as well. So huge shout out to you guys. All the best in the Stanley Cup Final. However, today we are going through the playoffs that were, and unfortunately we have to go through the playoffs that were because we aren't in that Stanley Cup Final. We only made it, and I say only with a wry smile on my face, because we made it to the Western Conference Finals. As Ken Holland put it to the team yesterday, as he said in his exit press conference today, that, hey, in September, 32 teams went into the season. In June, only 4 were playing hockey, and the Edmonton Oilers were one of them. They were at points where in January, halfway through the season, where the Oilers were one of the worst teams in the league, out of a playoff position. And now we're one of the last teams to be eliminated in the playoffs. That's pretty incredible. But let's get started from round one, baby. The playoffs just felt different this year. The Oilers went into the playoffs last year against Winnipeg, and everyone's like, it's Winnipeg, you're moving on. Well, look what happened. You got swept. But it was a different team. You weren't going into the playoffs with the question mark at the winger spot, really, for Connor McDavid. You knew what the first line was going to look like. And even if you didn't know what the first line was going to look like, it was going to be a line that actually did some damage. The first line in the forward core for the Oilers, just fantastic and great depth for the Oilers, and really pushed the Oilers to where they ended up today, I guess, really, in these exit press conferences. Press conferences. I got confused because conference finals, Western Conference. I was like, hold on a second. But let's start it again in Los Angeles, as that was, the Oilers were supposed to get through that one. I had like Oilers in 5. I had it pretty, and let's be honest, every series that went through for the Oilers, I was very off on. I think I said Oilers in 5, maybe Oilers in 6 would be a little nice. And then I went Flames in 7, so that went very well. Oilers in 5, and then I said Oilers in 7 in this series. Whoopsie daisy. But hey, throughout that LA series, you really got a glimpse of what you're going to expect throughout the rest of these playoffs with this team. It was basically carbon copy throughout every game with these playoffs from the Los Angeles series. Oh no, the Oilers are down early. Oh, they had a bad first period. Oh wait, but there's a second period. Oh, there are the Oilers, and the story just started. We also got a game 7 in Edmonton. That hasn't happened in years. And it just has felt so nice to be a part of and have the city have that energy in a game 7. And then you see Connor McDavid become Connor McDavid. Score the game winning goal. Well, more put the game away. Everybody's calling it the game winner. It was more to put the game away. Connor McDavid's excitement and just how proud he was to be able to help put this team to the next level. And really, in game 7, that was Connor McDavid's game. From the first shift, Connor McDavid came out and hammered Sean Durzi and set the precedent, set the tone for the Oilers for the rest of the game. They said to LA, hey, this isn't going to be easy. You're coming into our barn. We are coming into game 7. We have some of the best players. This isn't going to be easy. And Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers made it difficult on the Kings when it mattered. Plus, out of that series, we got tons of storylines. Hey, before the game 7, to send it to game 7, we got Evander Kane's 7 hands. His little hand gesture here. That was fun to watch. That was great to see. Oilers fans finally had something to look at and go, hey, that's our guy in an important game throwing up a gesture that everybody is going to remember. And he has our logo on. We're not the ones from the outside looking in and seeing somebody go do something like that. And you go, man, I wish that was on our team. It was our team. That was everywhere. It had the Oilers logo everywhere. And the Oilers took it to a game 7. And the Oilers had a winger who was competent enough next to Connor McDavid to get us to a game 7. That's pretty fun to watch because the Oilers were down in that series. They were down 3-2 in Los Angeles, and they had to win that game in game 6 to bring it back home for a game 7. And they did it. Pretty impressive. Plus, we also got the whole Mikey Anderson thing. If you've been watching since the LA series, you know Mikey Anderson doesn't have a very massive fan over here. But as Ken Holland said in his press conference, from Mikey Anderson's incident with Leon Draisaitl, that was the moment that Leon Draisaitl hurt his ankle. I know that's not exactly a whoa moment, but that was when Draisaitl's ankle did start to hurt. And maybe some people thought maybe he had something going before. Everybody's banged up in the playoffs at some point, but that was the moment where Leon basically was playing on one leg for the entire time. Kenny Holland said it was a high ankle sprain. Probably a little bit more as he played along with it throughout the playoffs, but like it was real. That was where it happened, and I'm sure this again. I'm saying slew foot with the most caution of cautions on Nathan MacKinnon. Was it a positioning play? Yes, I'm not exactly too hyped up about the slew foot by MacKinnon. I don't think it was exactly malicious. It was just a hard-working play, whatever. But I'm sure that didn't help Leon at all, as we've seen not only after in that game specifically in game 3, but then in game 4, just how much Leon was laboring. It all stemmed from the first series on that Mikey Anderson slew foot. That one was a slew foot. So, the Oilers storyline started from this series. Plus, you can't forget the Adrian Kempe point to the ear here. So that was full of great time. Plus, I mean, to take yourself out of the whole Oilers fandom position and take a look at the fact that people in Los Angeles and on a higher stage got to see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl do their thing is massive for the game. And it is massive for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, massive for the city of Edmonton, because they are representatives of this city. Realistically, that is what they do. And that series was one of, if not the best parts of being able, well, that was the best part, sorry, of that series, was being able to have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at such a massive stage. So that was the LA Kings series. Let's move on to the Calgary Flames series, because, yes, we did get a little Battle of Alberta in this playoffs for the first time since 1991. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait till the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Why choose to spend 30, 50, and even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? For example, that Honda Odyssey fuel pump at a local chain store or at your local chain store, it's normally about $353. On Rock Auto, $216. Save time and money while using Rock Auto. Plus, Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Head to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box, so they know who sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And also, just before we get to the Calgary Flames series, we still have this listener survey going for you right now. When we have an important favor to ask of you for this listener survey. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcast. Just head to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now, and you can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. And to take your survey, go to Rock Auto. Head to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you so much for your help. And thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Oilers as we are going through today. Unfortunately, the Oilers don't play. Unfortunately, we would have a game 6 or game 5, I guess, tonight. But unfortunately, that's not happening. But what did happen was a 5-game series against the Calgary Flames. And what a series it was. The Battle of Alberta, the first one since 1991. And boy, did it not disappoint. From the first game, the highest scoring Battle of Alberta ever in game 1. Hello. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. That was the Battle of Alberta, and it was a fantastic Battle of Alberta, even though the Oilers lost. I mean, I think a lot of Oilers fans were going into that series going, oh, man, we've got, without that 9-5 game sitting in the back of your head, you're just going, man, I don't know if the Oilers have a great chance in this series. And then it went 9-6 in game one. And you're going, wow, I guess I was right. The Oilers don't have a massive chance in this series. And then cue Zach Hyman. He scored in every game of that series, the first Oiler to ever do so. He was the first Oiler to ever score in every game of a series ever. Do you know how many Oilers and really good Oilers have been through the ranks and been through the playoffs to try and do something like that? Quite a few. Have you ever heard of Wayne Gretzky? Ever heard of him? Mark Messier never did it. Esa Tikkanen never did it. Paul Coffey never did it. Yari Curry never did it. Zach Hyman did it. Zach Hyman, baby. What a signing Zach Hyman was. And Zach Hyman never made it past the first round with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, that is highly well documented, but he came here, he did what he needed to do, and he did it not only in the first round, but in the second round and in the third round. Zach Hyman, thank you so much for being here. And then the Edmonton Oilers went on to win 4 straight against the Calgary Flames and send them to their first Western Conference final since 2006. Anybody remember that year? Yes, what a year that was. But I mean, also throughout that series, Connor McDavid implemented and just cemented himself as the best player in the world in that series. The Calgary Flames had no answer at all for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And let's not forget, Leon Draisaitl was doing it on one foot. Pretty decent, but actually one leg, basically, because the high ankle sprain affects your basically whole leg. You can't put a lot of pressure on your foot at all, so that really affects the way you're going to skate. And Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid were the best players in the world right there. Just fantastic. And the Edmonton Oilers go on to win the first playoff battle of Alberta since 1991. I'll take that as a win if you ask me. That's kind of our Stanley Cup, even though we're not in it this year, or because we're not in it this year. Just a great week for the Oilers in that May 18th to May 26th, that was. So I'm not very good at math, but that is about 8 days. So fantastic week it was for not only Edmonton, but for Alberta as well. And then, like we mentioned, the Edmonton Oilers were off to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2006. And what a time it was for the Edmonton Oilers. I know we got swept, but what a time it was for the city. The Edmonton Oilers just went on to face, and probably, and I'll call my shot now, the Stanley Cup champions. A team that was at basically the exact same spot the Edmonton Oilers were at for the last few years. The Edmonton Oilers got to look in the mirror and see what they needed to become the Edmonton Oilers that they think they are. And they want to become. I know I mentioned the Pittsburgh Penguins a couple times, but that is also mostly because of Sidney Crosby and of Evgeny Malkin and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But you take a look at the Colorado Avalanche and you take a look at who they were as a team a couple years ago, and you kind of see the Edmonton Oilers. So, you hear what guys like Ryan McLeod said in their exit interviews, saying, we played a team like Colorado. Now we see what it takes to, I know they didn't beat them, but what it takes to skate with them, what it takes to beat a team like that, what it takes to even play a team like that, to cover a guy like Nathan McKinnon, to cover a guy like Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. Have I mentioned that guy yet? I mean, I can't not gush over the kid. I have liked him. I watched him in Brooks when he played for the Bandits, and he is just fantastic. fantastic. It's the moment I watch this kid, I'm like, he is special. And I know a lot of people now are coming out of the woodworks and going, "No, I said that too." But genuinely, like this kid, the moment you saw this kid watch hockey, you knew that he is special, and he is special. And the Edmonton Oilers got to get a taste of what, and hopefully, and like I said, I've loved the Colorado Avalanche engagement and interactions that I've had so far, but hopefully this kind of sparks a little bit of a playoff rivalry between the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche. A couple final passing things in this that I want to talk about. Players playing through injury. Ken Holland confirmed, I guess is the proper way to put it, the Leon Draisaitl high ankle sprain. Darnell Nurse, excuse me, did have that torn hip flexor for the entire playoffs. Also, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a shoulder injury throughout the playoffs. You couldn't tell at all. Jesse Puljujärvi in the final game suffered a major shoulder injury. Apparently, that's an injury that could keep him out for about 4 weeks if we were in the regular season. So not exactly a pushover type injury for Jesse Puljujärvi, but he came back and had honestly a very strong game against the Colorado Avalanche in the last game. Plus, Kyler Yamamoto as well was in concussion protocol from that hit. It sounded like from Kenny Holland. So those were the injuries. It sounds like as well, he talked to TD Force and said that they don't really expect any surgery needed for any of these players. So that is fantastic to hear. Go and rest and get your time off. The last thing I want to mention, Connor and Leon, I already mentioned them a lot, but they are doing stuff that hasn't been done in years, 30 plus years, ever. There were times where the broadcast would go, this is the first time somebody has ever done this, and it's done by Leon or Connor. And you get to sit here and go, you know what? I just watched that. So that was a very long, extended, hard-winded, or what, long-winded, I don't know the words. I don't know what we're trying to say here, but long-winded discussion of the playoffs. It took 20 minutes. I didn't mean for it to. It was only supposed to be 10, but that's okay. We've still got, just quickly, we're going to talk about Jay Woodcroft. Is he or isn't he the right guy? I think we all know he is the right guy. What did Jay Woodcroft bring to the Oilers? Just really quickly, and we still got postseason hockey in Edmonton, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's NBA Finals, as I believe Game 3 goes tonight in Boston. It should be. I think the schedule flips over to Boston tonight. Plus, the NHL Conference Finals, as last night, a massive win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. The series is at 2-2. Are we going to see the three-peat? Plus, the QMJHL Finals, and this might be spoiling it just a little bit, my last segment here. But the Shawinigan Cataracts do play tonight on TSN, so you can bet on the money line, the puck line, the over-under on that game, and Xavier Bourgault on that team as well. So a little Oilers flair in that game as well. Plus, hey, we also mentioned NFL futures are are already out. We're into OTAs now. It sounds like DK Metcalf is sitting out. So if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, my bad. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and much more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Take a quick sip there, as we've been talking a lot today. Wasn't expecting this, but we're going to move on to Woody really quick. As I mentioned, this episode's gone a little longer than I planned, but it's okay. It's nice to live in the past a little bit when the future is a little bleak or empty right now. But it's not bleak. The Oilers' future is far from being bleak. But the next couple of days, we wish we had a Game 5 tonight. Anyways, Jay Woodcroft. What did Jay Woodcroft do under the Edmonton umbrella, under the organization? Well, let's be real. We wouldn't be here without Jay Woodcroft. I know I gave him a lot of slack and a lot of flack, I guess. I shouldn't say slack. I gave him a lot of flack after this series because I think there was a lot of deployment that could have been better. And that's okay. That's my job to sit here and go, oh, well, you could have done this. And that's his job to go, you're an idiot. I'm here. You're there. Shut up. But either way, we wouldn't be here without what Jay Woodcroft did. That sounds proper. And let's be real. A lot of the players under Jay Woodcroft really excelled. So the first thing that Woody did was implement that 11-7. Like Bob Stauffer said to Jay Woodcroft today in his press conference, he said, good coaches, especially in football, they come in and they give new plays, they add new plays to the already existing playbook. The Edmonton Oilers knew how to play 12-6, and they already had a pretty good power play to begin with. So now you come in, how do you make them shorthanded better? And hey, how about we throw in a little something with the 11-7? And the Oilers played pretty well with it. You got a little bit of deployment. You get to naturally play guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl more. You get those important offensive players out there while also getting defensive support as well, especially with a team with a 40-year-old goaltender like Mike Smith. That helped the team find a direction that didn't seem like they really knew where to go, if that really makes sense. So that 11-7 was massive for Jay Woodcroft and the Edmonton Oilers, and massive for the future of the team because it also let guys like Philip Broberg, Marcus Niemelainen, Chris Russell as well come in and help the development of guys like a Philip Broberg, like an Evan Bouchard. You got to see a lot of development with those guys. Plus, you got to see development out of guys who have played under Jay Woodcroft, like I said, like a Ryan McLeod. Man, Ryan McLeod's a little perfect, isn't he? He's kind of a special player. He's a guy who can play, like I said, 5-on-5 on the PK, on the power play. It's kind of like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins 2.0, no? The points will come, but he can play at any level at any time. And like he said, the most important thing of this season was realizing that he can play at this level. And you can, Ryan. You are one of my favorite players. You can skate, you can shoot, you can back check, you can forecheck, you can do it all. Ryan McLeod is an important player to this team, an important player to this organization, a player that a lot of Oilers fans should start to pay a lot of more attention to. And I think he has warranted that. Also, players who have really blossomed under Jay Woodcroft, Kyler Yamamoto, who you missed his presence in game 3 and 4, and you realize just how important he is on the team and on that forecheck for the Edmonton Oilers. Evan Bouchard became one of the Oilers' top defensemen. A little work on the defensive side, but that's okay. He, at any point, Evan Bouchard can turn the team at any point. Or turn the game, I should say. Also, Brett Kulak looked fantastic under Jay Woodcroft. The whole team really looked well under Jay Woodcroft. And that was because the message was clear for the Edmonton Oilers. When he came in, the Oilers knew what he wanted out of them, and the Oilers went and gave it to him. And then when the Oilers weren't giving it to him, he would come up and say, hey, you know what? You aren't doing this. You aren't doing this. You need to do this, and this better. And the players knew exactly what they needed to work on. They weren't told, you got to be better. You should know you got to be better. And that was something that Derek Ryan said in a press conference earlier this season. He said, like, the difference between Jay Woodcroft and Dave Tippett was that I actually knew what I wasn't doing well. And when Derek Ryan was taken out of the lineup, he knew why, and he knew what he needed to work on. And then when he did come back under Jay Woodcroft, he knew was excelling. The guy had a hat trick in a game and then scored 2 in the next? Like, not bad. Like, he really got the most out of every one of those players. Plus, again, everybody bought in. You heard messages all the time, like smaller picture, or we're only working one day at a time, and even Jay Woodcroft would laugh and go, I know you guys are going to roll your eyes, but we're taking it one game at a time. And the Oilers would constantly say it. Like Tyson Barrie would come out there and mimic the exact same message that Jay Woodcroft just went out there and said. That's the communication. That is the understanding and the buy-in that you need from a team to go out there and win. And that's what we saw from the Edmonton Oilers, plus the adjustments in game as well. Kenny Holland was really praised, I guess, Jay Woodcroft and his in-game adjustments, and he was coaching in game, which sounds weird, which sounds like, yeah, no kidding, he should be. But sometimes you just get a guy who's sitting there who goes, you got to be better. You're getting on players and stuff like that. Jay Woodcroft wasn't that guy. Jay Woodcroft was going out there and going, hey, you need to do this better. You need to do this better. And talking with guys going, hey, you're doing this well. Let's keep it going. And it wasn't all necessarily negative or positive. It was mostly constructive. And that's what you need from a coach, especially a coach for a team. For a team this good. Alrighty, let's move into the last period of today as we are stretching our time here today. I'm sorry for making it a long one, but there's so much to talk about, everybody, as another Edmonton team is in a final. There's playoff hockey in Edmonton, everybody, and it comes in the form of the Edmonton Oil Kings. Yes, the Edmonton Oil Kings are in the WHL Ed Chenoweth final. I think I said that wrong. Ed Chenoweth? Ed Chenoweth? Yeah, well, if you know WHL and you know Ed Chenoweth, you know how to say it. But either way, the Edmonton Oil Kings are playing for that final. I was going to say the Stanley Cup, but for that cup to eventually move on to the Memorial Cup and hopefully win their second Memorial Cup in the last, 10, 15 years? So not too bad. But the Edmonton Oil Kings did play last night in Seattle as they are playing the Thunderbirds in the final. It was a heck of a game. I was messaging a couple of my buddies who were watching the game as well. One of them lives in Winnipeg, so he got to see the Winnipeg Ice play and guys like Matthew Savoy and Connor Geeky. But we were going, man, this is a goalie battle. Ooh, okay, this is a goalie battle. Milich, the goaltender for Seattle, massive save on Jake Neighbors. And then I don't want to say the floodgates open because the final score was 4-0 for the Edmonton Oil Kings as the Oil Kings scored late in the second period and then kept scoring in the third. But it was very late in the second period. The Oilers scored or Oil Kings, I should say, a beautiful, beautiful goal by Jacob Demick he's a Vegas Golden Knights pick as well, which I was learning for the first time. Beautiful goal going basically blue line to the blue line, I guess, and just going end to end and snuck it far side on the goaltender. Great goal. Simon Kubicek scored the second goal for the Oil Kings as he's a great talent for the Oil Kings. A lot of great talent for the Oil Kings spread out throughout their lineup. And I mean, you get a lot of the guys like the Justin Sortifs, the Caden Goulies, Luke Prokops, the Jake Neighbors. I haven't even mentioned Dylan Gunther yet, Sebastian Kosha. Everybody knows those guys. But you get a lot of guys like the Jakob Demicks, the Simon Kubiceks, the Josh Williams. You get Carter Sauch as well. Great talents all around this team. Speaking of Carter Sauch, he scored the empty netter in that. And then, speaking of all those guys, Caden Gooley scores the goal from Jake Neighbors and Justin Sortif for the third goal as the Edmonton Oil Kings go up 2-1 in the WHL final. As you can watch all those games on TSN. So you can watch some Edmonton playoff hockey still on your TV. You can watch it there. Plus, Sebastian Kosha also getting a 21 save shutout as well for the Oil Kings. Also, Game 2 happened the day after the Oilers lost in Game 3, so I guess that was Sunday. One of those days, Sunday. Luke Prokop ended that game with 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points as well. So a massive game for Luke Prokop. What a great story. What a great talent Luke Prokop is. Plus, Dylan Gunther is second in playoff goals in the WHL. Justin Sordiff is tied for first in shorthanded goals with 2. And Sebastian Kosha leads the WHL in playoff shutouts with 4 and fourth in goals against average with 1.98. Fantastic hockey being played in Edmonton right now. Fantastic playoff hockey being played in Edmonton right now. So the next home game in Edmonton, which will be game 5, goes on Saturday at 7 o'clock. So, hey, if you got some time and you want to see some playoff Oilers or Oil Kings hockey, head down to Rogers Place, as that could be, depending on what happens tomorrow night in the Oil Kings game, they could be going up 3-1 in that game. They could be going for the cup in game 5. So, not trying to jinx anything. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Excuse me. Alrighty. On to the final thing that I want to talk about with the Major Junior playoffs, because this is what this segment is about, is Major Junior playoffs. Xavier Bourgault and his Shawinigan Cataracts are in the QMJHL final, and they're up 2-0 already. And a huge thank you to Xavier Bourgault. In game 1, the Shawinigan Cataracts won 5-1. In game 1, Xavier Bourgault ending with 2 goals, including the game winner and the insurance goal. So pretty big game for Xavier Bourgault. And that wasn't the only game winner that he would have in this series already, because in game 2, they won in overtime 4-3 end. Xavier Bourgault finishing with a goal, an assist, 2 points, including the game-winning goal to put up his Shawinigan Cataracts 2-0. And hey, let's be real. If the Oil Kings can make it to the Memorial Cup and the Shawinigan Cataracts can make it to the Memorial Cup, you not only get Edmonton Edmonton playoff hockey, but you also get an Oilers prospect in some important games as well. Thank you so much for tuning in today for the Locked On Oilers podcast. Also, just before we head out, if Shawinigan and the Oil Kings do end up making it to the Memorial Cup, that's going to be the second time that both teams are in the Memorial Cup together. So that's, considering 4 teams out of like 64 plus make it to the Memorial Cup, that's pretty impressive. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL, and Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It is free and available wherever you find your podcast. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the season and talk about the season that was, and then we'll move on to the off-season content as well, and we'll talk more about the draft and who the Edmonton Oilers might have available at 29. So we'll have all that and so much more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Oilers. But for today, I hope you stay safe and have a wonderful day.